Well, it's Thursday, the 2nd of September 2022. It's about 14 degrees Celsius outside, I think, which is about 54 degrees Fahrenheit. Rather coolish and overcast day. So what's happening in September in the goat shed? Well, I can tell you lots. But before we proceed, we had a sad month last month. Some of you may have seen our dog Daisy that was running around in some of our videos. Sadly, Daisy died on the Saturday morning, the 6th of last month. She was about 12, 13 year old, belonged to Graham's brother, and yes, unfortunately the dog took a bad turn with breathing and couldn't be revived. So RIP Daisy dog, we'll miss you. We only had you for a short time, but we've still got Spanky. Now, as I mentioned, it is going to be a really, really big month, but let me just show you something that we did through the course of this last month. Oh, but before I do that, just a reminder that we've got the tin goat signs now, and we've got some more beer coolers coming in. We're going to have those available at Pinfest for those people that have pre-ordered any, or anyone that wants one. They'll be available at Pinfest. So, look what we made. We used an old Bally 50s step unit, which was pretty badly decayed, and we've mounted it on a base. That base is the part, the top or the bottom of a drop target assembly from Gottlieb. And the way we've designed it, we can, if someone wants to give it to someone as a gift, they can get a plaque and put it on there, screw it on or bolt it on or whatever you glue it on, whatever the case might be. The longest part of that project was to clean everything up. You saw on the other side there where all the contacts were all nice and shiny and everything. All the frame was really badly rusted. We soaked it in vinegar and so on. All the metal parts that you're looking at that are all part of the machine, they've all been cleaned and highly polished, and it's been clear coated to prevent it from further deterioration. So that's a nice little thing. Graham wanted to do that for ages, so we got in and done that. So we're pretty happy with that. Now, a couple of other things that have occurred during the month. Well, lots, but first of all, let's talk about September 22nd. I leave for the USA. Now, we're very, very excited about this. I'll be travelling with another Goat Shed member. His name's Craig Cashell. He and I toured the USA in 2018. Those of you that follow me personally on Facebook, just today I've posted an itinerary which is not totally complete, but gives you a bit of an idea and a rundown where we're going. And I'm starting off in San Diego. I'll be arriving at LA Airport around about 6:10 in the morning on the Thursday, and then I'll be making my way to San Diego. And I've been offered some accommodation at some people's home, which is wonderful of them, and they're going to be able to show me some of the sights. So hopefully I'll get to the San Diego Zoo, and I believe there's a USS Enterprise is parked down there in a naval type museum. I'd like to have a look at that too. In Long Beach we're going to a private exhibition, and then we're off to Canonga Park, and then over to Vegas, New York City, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Chicago Expo. Now, look out for me at Chicago Expo. We'll be giving a talk. I think that's the Thursday night. It's just not 100% sure. And then I'll be collaborating with Mark Gibson from Fun with Pinball and Mike Hale, and we'll be giving a technical talk. So that should be great. And when we finally leave Chicago, we'll be going over to San Francisco, and that'll be sort of the tail end of the tour. So yeah, we're really looking forward to that. So, not to want to bore anybody, I'll also hopefully be visiting Wisconsin, a private collection there. And a very good friend of ours owns a farm in Illinois, and we'll be spending a couple of days there for a bit of rest and recreation. That'll be probably prior to the Chicago Expo. So there's lots to see and lots to do, and we just won't get everything done that we wish to get done and people to see that we'd like to see. But bear in mind, we'll be at the York White Rose Game Room Show in Pennsylvania, so that's early October, and we'll be at the Chicago Expo. So I think most people would have got their tickets by now for the Expo if they were going. Alright, enough of that. What else have we been up to? Well, we've got a few projects on the go, and our annual Pinfest is on in 3 more weekends time, so that's not far away. And then that following Thursday I leave to go to the USA. So at the moment we're doing a Buckaroo, which is going to go to Pinfest. We're going to show you these machines in a moment. We've just done a Gottlieb soccer, that's the one from 1975. Just give that a bit of a tune up and things that the owner wanted. We've got a fairly rare game here. Now, we know of 3 of these in our area, so I don't know, someone must have bought some and they've come across them, and that's a game called Hot Race, which is essentially licensed by Gottlieb to a mob called AMI SPA. It's an Italian company. I'm not sure what the SPA might be, a company like an LLC or a PTY Limited, not sure, never looked it up, but we'll show you that as well. And we've mentioned this in previous videos, but we've got a surfer here which the parts have finally been ordered from PBR to come to us. Now here's a little side project we found. One day this actually works. This is an IBM electric clock. Now it actually still goes when you plug it in, but it needs a bit of refurbishing. Now this came out of an electricity substation in the 1950s. So Graham's dad used to work for the New South Wales Electricity Commission, and when they changed the clocks over, he retrieved this one, and Graham's had it for years. So that's an interesting thing. So it's by IBM. IBM means International Business Machines, and of course everyone knows IBM for computers, but they did make a host of other stuff. So clocks, dictaphone machines they made, and of course most people know they made typewriters, they made golf ball ones, and they also made type bar typewriters. To my knowledge, they didn't make a manual, but they made electrics. And they also made typewriters that could do what you call proportional spacing. Now these were quite an interesting device, and people have heard me mention before my background is office equipment. I am a typewriter mechanic by trade, and proportional spacing machines had an interesting escapement setup in them to give proportion to each letter. So in other words, a W represented the widest character and an I the skinniest character. So, and then you had an L which was in between, if that sort of makes sense to you. So that's all very, very good. Now let me show you something else here. So this is the playfield out of that AMI Hot Race. It's in really, really good condition. Now the owner actually bought this way back in 1995, so he's owned it 27 years. Now it used to work, but what's happened to it in between times is obviously it stopped working, and he's asked us to get it going for him. It's a really lovely playfield. You probably won't get one much better than that. Look at the apron, that's all original condition. Now the chap has sort of custom made the cabinet colours a little bit. It's not original, but yes, it's quite a good machine. So yeah, we know of 3 of these in our immediate area. We actually repaired one for a guy probably about a year ago. Now when we posted this on our Facebook page the other day, someone thought this was a 4-player version of Spin Out. but that's not really the case. And as Graham pointed out, we're actually working on a Buckaroo, and Spin Out was sort of a later version of Buckaroo in a funny sort of way. So there you go. Here's the motorboard of this game. As you can see, it's essentially Gottlieb score motor, but what they've done, they've used their own metal frame. So see that stepper up the back, that's like a ball player stepper. It's a funny arrangement. We've got the wiper finger off that at the moment. Someone had actually soldered some wires on in the wrong spot, so fortunately we do have the schematic and we were able to work that out. But we've got to go through that motorboard. There was a problem with the start relay not holding on, but that's now been fixed. That was simply a switch on Motorstack 2C. So let's have a look what else we're up to. Pretty cool, those signs, aren't they? Just raining outside at the moment, and you may hear the rain hitting on the tin roof of the shed. So I hope that doesn't interfere too much with our video, otherwise we'll just pause and start again. But yeah, it's spring here in Australia. Now our seasons start on the 1st of the month, so spring, September, October, November, and then 1st of December is summer, so December, January, February, and then March, April, May is autumn. But when I come over to the USA, we'll be into your autumn, I believe. I think your seasons start in odd sort of days. Well, when I say odd, compared to what we're used to on the 1st. But I think you people prefer to call autumn fall, when all the leaves fall off the trees, and that makes perfect sense to me. We're still working on this blue chip bingo machine as well. We've done a lot of work on that. We've had this here quite a while, so those of you that follow our videos would have seen this before, but it's in the front shed because it's so big and we don't have a lot of light in here. We've got to get lights and power points and things put in here, and you can't open the doors during the winter, because what will happen is you'll get that's facing due west, and that's where all the bad weather comes from out there. So that's sort of why we've been delayed on that. We've actually been in touch with the owner about that, and he perfectly understands. Now here we have the classic Gottlieb game, Buckaroo. I mean, this is a real collectible machine. Now the owner of this has got, you know, a number of electromechanical pinballs, and I think this is one of his pride and joys. I think he's actually going to buy a new back glass for it. Not 100% sure, but there are some slight blemishes just to the left of the Gottlieb sign there. There's a little bit of a mark up around the wire. They could be repaired, I guess, if you've got someone to do it. It's hard to get people to do these. But have a look at the playfield, right? It's been clear coated. Now once again, if you follow us on Facebook, you will have seen stuff about this. Look at the shine on this. It's beautiful. It's really come up nice. One couldn't begin to imagine how nice it looks. So this machine is coming to our Pinfest, as we mentioned earlier. We were originally just tasked to get the roto unit working. Well, the roto unit, when it spun, it wasn't clicking back like it should to centre itself, and there was severe. We'd done a video on the roto unit just the other day, so have a look at that. That roto unit was Buckaroo. We actually had to file the back escapement wheel. That's the one that pulls it back down. The teeth on it were almost like fish hooks. It was terrible. So this is a lovely game. This should be very popular at Pinfest with the older people. Sadly, not a lot of younger people under about 40 odd year old have much interest in electromechanical machines. Certainly there are exceptions to the rule, I guess, but Graham and I just simply love them. Even the apron on this is original. Well, looky at that. That's an original apron. You won't see that very often. And even up the back, it's a bit hard for me to get in there. I might be able to get in there though and show you the certificate. There it is, the original manufacturer's certificate. Now it's slightly flawed, but you know, the chap doesn't want to replace it. He just wants to give it that bit of patina and make it look like it did when it left the factory in 1965. Well, obviously the label didn't look like that, but you know, it just gives good memories. My goodness, 1965 was a long time ago. So, what, 57 years? Wow. Anyway, the machine's younger than I am, so I guess it's got something going for it. Now, one thing on Buckaroo, after we go to all our work and put it back together, the game started once by pressing the credit button, then it wouldn't start again. So, what the problem was, we traced it down after doing a little bit of troubleshooting on the basic startup circuit, like slam switches, start relay, etc. We found that when we bumped the door, it would start, and we only found that by accident. I think I had my hand on the button. Graham brushed past, my hand moved the door, and it started. There was a wire just ready to break off, and that's it right there. That one. So that's the orange wire, goes to the replay button, and that's the reason it wouldn't start. Then that was all good. It started up, and then we'd never had the motorboard out of this, and we weren't intending to. But on the trip bank, on the reset relay, you can just see a red and white wire over there. Oh, that might not be it. Where is it? Oh, it's hard to see. Anyway, we were still having intermittent problems, and we decided to have a little look at that trip bank, and we found the red and white wire on the reset relay was barely hanging on. It was broken, so we replaced that. Did coil sleeves in the trip bank for the numbers and letters under the playfield. They were really sticking, and we did the coil sleeve in the sequence bank, as well as the pesky SB armature switch. Now remember, we've done a whole video on servicing trip banks and SB armature switches. Be well worth you having a look back and finding it and viewing our video. Okay, the other project for Pinfest was Gottlieb Soccer from 1975. This machine just needed a few little things doing to it. We had to change some of the rubbers. The main complaint the guy had was the middle pop bumper would stick. What we found, the bumper skirt itself, the tip of it that touches the spoon switch, was sort of worn and had little dags of plastic and things on it, so we changed it over. We also changed the one on the right as well while we were on the job. The other problems that he sort of encountered with this game were the spinners. Now, this particular one here had to get changed. That spinner there got changed. The old one was sort of pointing like that, but the main problem was that the switches were adjusted too tight, the ones that operate the spinner on the wire, and the spinners would not really barely move, and of course the ball would get caught in there. Now, what we did notice is that this machine's got the incorrect legs on it. Instead of having 31 inch all round, it's got 27s on the front and 31 on the back. So, and the back's barely got any raise in it. So, it's got to be adjusted a little bit more, and we'll do that when we take the legs off. The other problem we found when we were using, that's right. Well, before we mention that, the owner also mentioned that the ball wasn't kicking out reliably. 3 or 4 goes to get into the shooter lane. Well, look, what we did, we just pulled the mechanism apart, the ball shooter mechanism, and put a new sleeve in the coil, cleaned up the mech itself, checked the spring. It was a little bit bindy, so we pulled things apart, polished them up, and that's working quite reliably now. But one thing we did notice, the 10-point score reel was not operating correctly. So when you got it and manually held it in your hand and operated it, it would reach the end of the stroke of the plunger, but it would struggle. It just wouldn't click over to the next number. But the problem was we noticed that the plunger was too long. So it was the incorrect one. Also, it was a metal plunger that someone had put in there at some point in time. And what that plunger did was score what that coil sleeve did was score the metal plunger. So we replaced the plunger also. That was sort of part of the deal. So this machine's behaving reliably, and we also noticed that when we were playing it, the chimes sounded very tinny. Well, what happened was, it's typical of these Gottliebs, you need to replace the beer seal type thing that where the plungers rest on when they come back down. And once we did that, it sounds quite good now. It probably would do with a chime kit, but we don't have one at the moment, and it's quite okay to go to Pinfest. So this particular machine's all good. Wonderful, it all works. Now, as I mentioned, the other project we've got is Gottlieb Surfer. All the parts have been ordered for that, and we'll be doing that very shortly. Once again, there's Surfer, there it is. So there's quite a bit to do to this game. There's lots of new parts to go in it. Pop bumper kits, coils, new drop targets, just to name a few. Oh, and look, the other problem we had on soccer, and this is a very common problem, and I think everyone should be aware of this, where the ball sits in here, that red piece of plastic was broken and it needed changing. So fortunately we had one. It impedes the kicker coming out. So they also have one of those on the out-hole kicker. That also was broken and got replaced. So if you've got games of this era that use those things, you can buy those, and we recommend you do change them where possible whilst you're working on your games. So that's what's happening in the goat shed in the month of September. Very exciting month for us with our upcoming USA trip. So I hope to meet as many of our viewers as possible in the USA, in any of those aforementioned places. But definitely the place to look for us is at the White Rose Game Room Show in New York, in Pennsylvania, and of course Pinball Expo in Schaumburg in the Chicago area. So this has been another Goat Shed presentation.